I'm here again today with John Woolfitt, Director at multi-award-winning broking and investment firm Atlantic Capital Markets. John, it's good to speak with you again.
Good to speak to you. Thank you, Alan.
So last month we spoke about how the markets seemed to be caught in a battle between recovery optimism and fears of a second wave, or in fact, continuation of a first wave, as many people are now saying, of COVID. How do you expect this to play out during August?
Yes, well, Alan, I mean, the battle will undoubtedly continue. At the moment, it looks like fear is the edge. The market's performance, certainly since our last chat, is certainly pointing that way. And I mean, as more economic data comes out and more companies report, it's not painting a very good picture at the moment. So, questions to be asked are how much will the Fed really continue to throw at it? How deep will this overall impact be on the global economy? And I think we'll see more economic data come out over the course of the month, which will give a bit more visibility on the true impact of what we've seen so far.
Yeah, following on from that, John, many commentators seem baffled at the stock market's ability at the present to shrug off the economic havoc and the coronavirus headlines. So, although we have seen a correction, of course, at the end of last week, clearly there are some serious questions to answer over the pandemic's impact on the global economy, not to mention the effectiveness and availability of testing and vaccines, of course. How does this look to you going forward?
Yeah, I mean, gloomy headlines are going to be with us for a little while there. I mean, they're sort of a byproduct of the fact that bad news sells better than good. The market's ability to shrug off the data, however, has been absolutely remarkable. I think this comes down to a view that this could still be a temporary blip rather than a long-term crisis. And looking back over the year, will it come down to the fact that, okay, there was a couple of months that got hit hard, but generally everyone's been doing okay. But I think the reality is that as more time goes on, the reality in the market is this is going to be a longer term hit. We've seen Fed move quickly to quell concerns with announcements for support, but then the question gets asked, how long can that continue? How are they actually going to foot the bill? I mean, the race for vaccines is certainly heating up as well. We've got big players like AstraZeneca and Pfizer now stepping into the ring. So I still think the market's a little bit punch drunk and still a bit optimistic that this is a blip and we'll be moving on in good time, really.
Okay. So we come a bit closer to home. Of course, the government's handling of the way they lifted the travel restrictions and then slammed them back on again, it's obviously wrought further chaos throughout the travel industry, through airlines, leisure companies, and so on. So, noting the buy ratings that Atlantic Capital Markets published during July for On the Beach and Stagecoach, clearly you're seeing a way through this for travel companies. Has your view changed?
No, I mean, a lot of travel companies work on thin margins, and I don't know if I'd offer them the same support as I do for On the Beach and Stagecoach. Stagecoach have a very robust financial position, ticks a lot of the green credentials, and obviously On the Beach have had a bit of a setback with the government travel restrictions. But again, the long-term outlook is good. Death toll from COVID is truly dreadful. There's obvious for anyone to see, but it is important to remember that thousands die every year from flu and other diseases. And whilst we have seen infections increase in recent news, the death rate hasn't quite increased at the same pace. So, with investments, you need the vision really to see through the short-term chatter and look for the long-term. And I dare say, there'll be some savvy investors out there made sharp moves when the FTSE was below 4,000 back in 2008. At the time, some might have said crazy, but years down the line, those moves will have come to fruition.
Yeah, very much so. So then for Atlantic viewers or Atlantic clients and viewers seeking trading ideas, what strategies do you have in mind for them in August?
Yeah, so it really comes down to the investor's appetite and time frame. For the short-term traders responding to our alerts, we've maintained a near market neutral approach. We're looking at both long and shorts. Pairs trades have worked very well. playing off the relative strength and weakness in certain sectors. We've also been tracking the underlying commodities like gold and silver, which has also paid off well when trading the metals, or the miners, should I say, that dig these metals up, like Centamin, Polymetal and Frez. One thing I will say to any traders out there, if profit's shown, get it banked. Low exposure overnight, the ability to respond to the next day's moves is critical. And for those that have been looking to take advantage of this this move for a longer term portfolio, we're starting to take advantage of some of the share prices on offer. Long term allows us to look at the more heavily impacted stocks, which may ultimately still see higher volatility in the near term, but will come good once we're into a real recovery. So it's been prime time for short-term and long-term movers, really.
That's a phrase that resonates well with me. No one ever went broke taking a profit. Very important.
Exactly.
Yeah. So summer 2020, relatively little corporate news around at the moment, and for August, of course. Has anything caught your eye for the coming weeks?
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, it's been a bit of a welcome breather after all the data we've had over the last month. But there's a few that will be interesting, especially just to, again, gauge that global impact. We've got Diageo reporting. More so for me, it's just going to see how much we've all actually been drinking over lockdown. But the reality is BP figures will be critical to understand how they've coped with the drop in oil price and also the drop in activity at the pump. Rightmove, that'll give a bit of an insight into the housing market sales. We often see positive commentary regarding to new builds, but the secondary housing market is something that we need to take a look at. And then we've got Direct Line and Admiral, both UK-facing insurers, and they'll be highlighting what's happened in their key markets. Okay, so of course, on top of all that, you've got a dealing team there in the office and the client and a big client base. You must get a lot of trading ideas and strategies from them. Can you provide some other examples? I think, we always keep our discipline. So, discipline's critical, even when the moves that you're seeing are illogical. So ultimately, we will always be following the trends. Good trends are hard to find in this market. I'll be honest with you on that side. But, we've seen great runs in the likes of Reckitt, Benckiser, Croda, Bunzl. Not too surprising, almost a little bit obvious. One makes bleach, the other makes specialist chemicals, and one does PPE. So they're all seeing great demand. There's been good news flow on vaccines, providing big news for AstraZeneca. But we've also, as I mentioned before, been monitoring closely the silver and gold and how this is translated to the precious metal miners. We always try to stick to the top end of the market just so we can trust liquidity and very rarely, get involved in any of the announcements on the day, not just because of what's being said, but also because of the market expectations. So there's been some key drivers on the trends that we followed. And, we try to run the trends really where we can to maximise gains. But as I said, the market is swinging from day to day. So it's a market to take your profit and move on, really. One thing I'd just like to add, there are no points for bravery, especially not in the stock market, that's for sure. Absolutely. Very, very sound advice there. Well, John, we're running short on time, but before we go, can you summarise some key takeaway trading ideas to help traders and investors during the coming month? Yeah, watch the data. It's more critical than ever. Don't respond in haste. Let the market respond first. Look before you leap. Remember, quality is quality. And while short-term moves can be fleeting and aggressive, quality stock will stand the test of time. For the short-term traders, don't be greedy. Book the profits. Keep your risk low. Tomorrow is a new day and developments change quite rapidly. And those, out there that want to try and identify market gains without the concerns of aggressive swings, I would just say keep an eye on the horizon for the launch of Atlantic Alpha. I might let you know a bit more of this next time, Alan, but it's essentially a market neutral hedged trading approach that we're going to be rolling out to take out the concerns of short-term volatility. And I think, more so in this time than ever, that's critical, really. Atlantic Alpha, that sounds really exciting, John. So
once again, great speaking to you. Let's catch up again at the start of September. You can tell me then about Atlantic Alpha, and obviously we can then discuss the news that's taken place during August. John Woolfitt, thanks very much for joining us today.
No problem, Alan. Been a pleasure. Thank you.